Boxingego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Back with the Ego Real Deal post-fight breakdown. When I talk about David Lemieux versus Curtis Stevens, holy shit. HBO main event, Box After Dark, Verona, New York. And I want to kind of just go over some of the tweets. It was too explosive, so I wasn't really keeping up with the tweets on this, but I'll give you my thoughts and just kind of tell you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll probably do a Gamboa fight prediction or post-fight, whatever. And this is the first tweet I left. I said, damn, what a round one. I gave it to Lemieux, busier, and he was landing some thunder. I like Stevens' composure, and he took some stands. To me, in the first round, the good for both, or especially David Lemieux, he started very aggressive. He came in with a functional 7-pound weight advantage in the rehydration process on HBO's unofficial scale. So he was the taller fighter. He was 7 pounds heavier, and he immediately got active, and that's why he won round one for me. He was just landing some thunderous shit. And the good thing with David Lemieux is he's not much on the defense, just like Curtis Stevens, but when he lets his hands go, he's just like, you can tell that shit looks like it hurts. He's throwing hammers, and he's really trying to debilitate you. He's really trying to get you out of there. Like he without a doubt. I watched enough. I seen the Gabe Rosado fight, the Hassan Indam, and all these fights, right? So he was landing some murderous shots. I had to give him round one because he was just busier. But I do think Curtis Stevens, he looked very calm and composed. Him with John David Jackson, I think that's a good pairing. He did take some stands. He just wasn't as busy as Lemieux. But I think they traded times where they were hurt. I think they hurt each other in round one, right? And it was just a phenomenal round one, just very active. And the Gamboa fight, I'm going to talk about it. Definitely, it wasn't as exciting of this, of course, but they don't have the styles of that. Plus, there's some more factors like Gamboa being on a long layoff. So round one was crack. And I said Curtis Stevens trying to time Lemieux with the left hook. The way Lemieux was coming in at first, he was mad aggressive, and I seen that Curtis Stevens is really good with he has like kind of a high guard catch and shoot, and he was trying to catch him coming in. But David Lemieux must have real cracks because he was, you know what I mean? That messes up your timing when someone's coming at you so aggressive, you know what I mean? Because you want to have a tight defense, you just want to be tight, you know what I mean? Because Lemieux was coming with everything in the first round and a half. He was coming. The bad blood in this fight, leading up to this fight, definitely showed up in rounds 1 and 2. You could tell David Lemieux really wanted to hurt this boy because of all the bad talking and the name calling and stuff. And he even said that. I did a video about it. You guys got to watch the channel, subscribe to the channel. David Lemieux, in this fight, in the buildup, he reminded Curtis Stevens he said, the last guy that I really did not like going into a fight because he was doing the same thing. He was mad, trash talking, and belittling me and stuff. He ended up with a broken nose and multiple, like 3 broken ribs, and of course a knockout loss. So I made a video about it. Lemieux, he stayed true to his promise and his style. Now the thing, like it or not, Lemieux is as advertised. You know what I'm saying? You know what you get. I think the Lemieux, obviously, I got to give credit to Golovkin for the win over Lemieux. Not that I didn't give it to him before, but I mean, clearly this guy has crazy power. So it was very smart of Golovkin to not do what he does in certain fights and just, you know what I mean, throw caution to the wind. It was very smart to work behind a jab and use your height advantage to really set things up and box him. So I give Golovkin credit for this win. I mean, he's a murderous puncher, Lemieux is, and per capita, he's probably even a bigger puncher than Golovkin. Golovkin just has accuracy, game planning, technique, more technique, and he just delivers. I would say he's a smarter offensive fighter than David Lemieux, but very smart of Golovkin. Now, I gotta say, the flip side of that coin is the reason I believe Golovkin got slack maybe for the David Lemieux performance is because him and his team came in as if Golovkin was the Terminator, and they coined this whole Mexican style. and they're saying, oh yeah, like Julio Cesar Chavez Mexican style and all of this, and people bought into it, and he didn't fight the one person that could give you Mexican style, which was David Lemieux, which could have been like this type of fight. You didn't choose to fight him like that, so it was just kind of goes against what you were coined at. To me, and I told you guys this for the longest, to me, David Lemieux is more, if Mexican style, what Golovkin was saying and stuff is just body work and aggressive and offense and put on a show. To me, David Lemieux is Mexican style. So again, I understand Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia and not giving Garcia no openings, or David Lemieux, but sometimes when you're a package deal, and you got to be smart, I get that, but when you promote yourself as a knockout machine, a knockout artist, and KOs for life, and Golovkin's Mexican style, that's sometimes what people expect. So to me, that's kind of why Golovkin got flack in the David Lemieux fight. But he fought smart, and it's very apparent. Lemieux's power is the real deal. To me, this knockout reminded me, it was a third round knockout, reminded me of the Deontay Wilder versus Artur Szpilka. I mean, you seen him, he was out cold, and it was seemingly out of nowhere. Like, I was like, what the fuck happened? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm watching it, but you almost couldn't even compute it. And that's a heavyweight I'm talking about and comparing a middleweight to. So definitely per capita, Lemieux got cracks. HBO was saying this too, the tweet you see on the screen. Lemieux doesn't look to be in the best shape, but be careful. He should be careful. And I was basically trying to say Curtis Stevens should invest in the bodies. It's kind of hard when you're tweeting and trying to watch the fight, because I don't want to miss anything just to leave a tweet. So sometimes there might be some typos. But I was basically saying Curtis Stevens needs to go to the body, because I agree with HBO. Lemieux he looked a little bit tubbier than he normally does or whatever. And it would have been interesting if Stevens could have stayed safe and got to the halfway mark, because he was exerting a lot of energy, especially in the round one. Lemieux was trying to, and that's what I said, Lemieux better not punch himself out, but he throwing sharp, offensive, hard shots. Nothing you could take away from that offense. It was looking nasty. Round two, both were exchanging nasty, vicious body shots. They hate each other. I mean, see, my tweets were very cut and dry to the point. And I said it was a swing round. I think I gave it to Curtis slightly. He was more composed, accurate. Lemieux kind of just bombs away. To be honest, I would say I actually thought Curtis Stevens had the better of the game plans. But obviously he lost, and I think he lost because of the battle of attrition. You know what I'm saying? A guy a bit bigger than him. They both have power, and you hooked with the hooker, and his shot landed first. But in terms of game plan, I thought that Curtis Stevens had the better game plan, because if Curtis Stevens was like maybe a little bit more defensive minded and it got past the round 5 and into the championship rounds or the halfway mark or whatever, it could have been an interesting fight, because I thought the way Lemieux was coming out, just guns blazing, bombs away, I don't think that would have done him any favors later. You know what I mean? It could have got interesting, but to his credit, he didn't let it go that far. You know what I mean? I just tweeted what Roy Jones said. Roy Jones says, it lets you know that shot hurted. I fuck with Roy Jones. I said, LOL, I love Roy. And he was talking about Curtis Stevens in round 2 landed a nasty body shot, and you seen Lemieux pull his hand down, his arm down. That's a body language shows you everything. When in fight, you always hear fighters talking about this. When you're in there with somebody and you do something right or you hurt them, you hear them grunt like, or make these noises and, or pull their hand down or their eyes, or you know what I'm saying? You could tell you're up close and personally. That's why sometimes from at home, when you see a referee stoppage or whatnot, and you don't understand it as a fan perspective, but you got to keep in mind that referee is looking in that fighter's eye. He knows, you know what I'm saying? He can see body language and things we might not be able to see from that firsthand perspective. So you got to respect boxing, but that's one thing Roy Jones, being a fighter, picked up, that Curtis Stevens dug a nasty shot to the body, because you instantly seen Lemieux drop his arm. And it reminds me of Mike Tyson, what I'm saying. Mike Tyson, I forgot who he was fighting, but he was fighting somebody, and post-fight, he was like, yeah, I'm in the ring. I knew the body shots were hurting him. I was getting to him. And he was like, how did you know that, Mike? Jim Gray or something was like, how did you know you were hurting him? And he was like, because he was crying in there. He was making these noises. He was making these little, and he was like, what do you mean he was crying? He's like, I don't know. He's making these little feminine gestures. he was crying in there like, oh, I don't know, I can't do it. As you can tell, Mike Tyson is one of my favorites ever. Anyway, yeah, Mike Tyson was basically talking about how his body shots were hurting his opponent, and from the body language he could tell. He said he was crying in there. Mike Tyson is a fool. How's your opponent crying in there? He's making these little feminine gestures. But this is when the fight ended. This is the tweet. I said, fuck. Lemieux got cracks. Fight is over. Congrats to David Lemieux, KO of the year candidate. Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a fight of the year candidate. You know what I mean? That was, I mean, actually fight of the year or knockout of the year. I meant to say knockout of the year candidate, but shout out to my dude, Ryan Mesa. I said, God damn, that was a highlight reel KO. That's a KO of the year nomination. Said the same thing. I retweeted it. Clearly a knockout of the year candidate. Just brutal stuff. And basically, this is David Lemieux after post fight. Basically, the way it was set up is David Lemieux was coming in and he had Curtis Stevens to the ropes. He landed that right hand, which was dope, and that was a hard shot. And Lemieux, they talked about this in the telecast. At first, he was known as like a right hand dominant. Right hand was his power punch, but he significantly improved his left hand. But anyway, his right used to be his money punch, and now it might be a toss-up. He clearly has power in both hands. But he backed Stevens up to the ropes with a nasty hard shot, which is kind of a blinding shot. And then Stevens, as he was coming in, was trying to time him and trying to counter him with the left hook. And Lemieux was in a better position, and he landed a short hook. And I give credit to Lemieux in this particular fight because Lemieux, it looked to me like he shortened up some of his punches, because I've seen him like maybe even in the Hassan Indam fight, which was probably like 2015, I think June of 2015, and he was throwing wider punches. So it looks like him and Mark Ramsey or whatever, have worked on shortening up the shots, because it's the punches in boxing that you don't see are the ones that are going to hurt you. And he kind of blinded him with this right that you see on the screen, and then they tried to trade hooks. You see Curtis Stevens about to hook, and then look right there, it was a very quick hook, and the Stevens had less impact, and then Lemieux's punch was just on the button, bow, lights out. And he was in this position for like minutes. So nasty knockout, very nasty stuff. Shout out to HBO Boxing and Golden Boy. This was everything that we expected to be in terms of a war. I mean, it was that. Congrats to the winner, David Lemieux. Post fight, he says he would like to avenge the Golovkin fight. He also talked about, he said Billy Joe Saunders is a champion out there, and he says Canelo, or he would like to be the first to defeat Golovkin as a pro. Now, I don't know if the Canelo fight will happen. I'm on Golden Boy's page right now. The reason I say that, because they're both Golden Boy fighters. Canelo has a big fight which he has to get past anyway, and that's with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. May 6th. Check that out, Cinco de Mayo. But Canelo is the last remaining real big star, cash cow. So will Golden Boy put two of their entertainment machines, and you know what I mean, A side and B side, or whatever you want to call it, David Lemieux, just guys who can be top billed in a main event and have an exciting style, you know what I mean? Are they going to put them together where one person has to lose? Plus, I mean, David Lemieux's power is no joke. Obviously, I would say that Canelo has better skills overall, but I mean, Lemieux showed he's hungry, he's focused. He bounced back off of losses before, and he did it again. Triple G beat him not too long ago, and he's already bounced back, and he's already making a name. So there's some options for David Lemieux. I would love the Canelo fight if he gets past Chavez Jr., and then that could be like the last fight. And if you beat Lemieux, then fight Golovkin. But maybe they're talking about fighting Golovkin in September. So if Canelo feels comfortable after the May 6th Chavez Canelo fight, then so be it. But options for David Lemieux. Another person, I don't know the logistics, but I mean, I don't know, because Danny Jacobs is an Al Heyman fighter, and he's fighting on HBO next week against Golovkin in an HBO pay-per-view. So maybe they can make the logistics make sense for Jermall Charlo and David Lemieux, which is a fight that maybe could happen. And Jermall Charlo just recently moved up to middleweight. But there's some definite options of fights that I would like to see. And some people thought this was kind of a crossroads fight. And it's funny because David Lemieux, to me, didn't look great in his last fight. He really didn't. He fought, a lot of people, see, this is the thing, because I told people this, and they're like, oh, he looked great versus Glenn Tapia. He did. I watched that fight. I was at the weigh-in and everything. But that wasn't his last fight before Curtis Stevens. He fought again late last year, against Christian Fabian Rios. And that's the fight I'm talking about. People got that twisted when I said that last time. He looked great. So David Lemieux, to me, is basically 2 for 3. His last 3 fights, he's looked exceptional in 2 of the 3 fights since the Golovkin loss, right? Glenn Tapia, he looked phenomenal, and he destroyed Glenn Tapia one-sided. And then Curtis Stevens was a war. Stevens had a couple spots, but I mean, with that highlight reel KO, he just punctuated that, and he just reasserted himself as, I mean, a threat. Anytime you have that type of power, then you're a threat. Because Curtis Stevens, he's been stopped twice before, I believe. Golovkin stopped him, but it was a different type of stoppage. It wasn't like that. Golovkin stopped him, he was on his feet like Kell Brook. It was kind of like, I don't know if the corner stopped it, I don't remember, or it stopped between rounds or something, but it wasn't that. It wasn't him unconscious for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And he's been stopped, I think, like Finley or somebody else stopped him before that, and it wasn't like that. So props to David Lemieux. He made a statement, and he ended the bad blood in exciting fashion like we expected. See, this is the fight that I'm talking about. I don't think David Lemieux looked great. And that's crazy how boxing is weird. I don't know. I guess it just depends on what's at stake, because how does this guy, Christian Fabian Rios, go the distance with David Lemieux, and then a bigger name who has way better experience gets knocked out in 3 brutally? You know what I mean? Boxing's funny like that. Mexicans for Lemieux. So I like David Lemieux. I like what he brings. This is a rematch. Let me know if you guys even want to see the rematch. But don't. This is the thing. I'm a realistic boxing fan. If Golovkin goes in there and destroys Jacobs or knocks him out, then don't get too jazzed up about Lemieux, because he still has to overcome that jab. So boxing, I noticed that boxing is very, very fickle. Where David Lemieux looked exceptional. Take nothing from him, but fights and styles make fights. Curtis Stevens had a height deficit. He was 7 pounds under. And I'm not saying that's the only reason he won or lost or whatever, but I'm just saying you have to compute everything. And the fact is, Golovkin, that doesn't apply to Golovkin. You know what I mean? Golovkin's undefeated. Golovkin is like 5'10", 5'11", taller than David Lemieux. Golovkin has certified power and knows how to get it off. He has a powerful jab even. That's like a power punch, basically. So you can't get too jazzed into thinking like David Lemieux, because he knocked out Curtis Stevens, is going to do that to Golovkin. But I would like, me personally, I would like to see a little bit more before the Golovkin rematch. And again, if Golovkin gets past Danny Jacobs, easy work, then I don't think the Lemieux fight would be much different. But who knows? Maybe a couple more fights in, if David Lemieux keeps looking destructive like he did versus Glenn Tapia and like he did versus Curtis Stevens, then he will have climbed up the ladder to the point where Golovkin has to fight him again in a rematch, because that'll be the only other person people want to see, and he'll be maybe more equipped for that and have a better performance. But clearly single shot power, clearly power in both hands, very aggressive, and I'm just looking forward to it. Now the middleweight division's starting to get interesting again. David Lemieux's getting some experience, and I don't know, Jermall Charlo's there, Canelo's up there, so it should be good. That's my real deal breakdown on LemieuxStevens. It was a hell of a fight. It was a war. Both fighters, salute to them for being warriors, even taking the fight. David Lemieux was the better man, and he ended that. He ended the shit with an emphatic statement. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially with the bad blood, trash talk, and stuff like that. That was a crazy knockout. So salute to David Lemieux, and I'm anxious to see where his career goes next. But these are bad knockouts. Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you share the video, like the video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.